Number one on my list. Number one with a bullet. I'm sorry. You guys can disagree with me all you want. Feel free to make your own list. This one is mine. But I have never, in the history of my entire life, I've been watching wrestling my entire life. My entire life, I have been watching wrestling. And never have the planets aligned the way that they did for me in 1998 at in August of New York City for SummerSlam, because it was the perfect fucking storm. First and foremost, it's 98. It's the summer of 98. I'm staying at my grandma's house in New York City. I'm in the Vladeck Apartments. I'm in Lower East Side Manhattan. I'm in the heart of it, right? While they're building towards SummerSlam 98. And that city, I don't think I've seen it since, to be honest with you. Because I live here full time now, and I don't see it anymore. But that year, for whatever reason, they went hard on the promotion. It was everywhere. Trains, buses, billboards. You couldn't go to Coney Island. You couldn't go to Times Square without seeing the fucking cartoon image of Stone Cold and The Undertaker in the main event and all this other stuff. It was fucking everywhere. And wrestling at that time, the Attitude Era, was beyond pop culture. Beyond pop culture. It was not a niche. Everybody was talking about the WWF in 1998. Everybody. So you're going to school hearing about it. You're going to summer camp hearing about it. You can't go to a fucking bodega without seeing the flyer and the pictures and people getting ready to fucking Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker. This is the talk of the talk. There were people, and this is no lie, I've seen it with my own eyes. That building in Madison Square Garden in 1998 sold out. I think they said it sold out in like 90 minutes. The tickets went on sale and it was gone in like an hour and a half. There were people lined up in front of Madison Square Garden by the entrance trying to get tickets from people who were coming in. They were trying to throw money at them. What'd you pay? $200. I'll give you $400 right now for that ticket. Like, they're trying to get into this building. When I try to tell you that there was police barricading the entrances so that people didn't rush the building and tear their way into the garden. This was the hottest ticket in town. This was it. This was the place to be. This was Muhammad Ali. This was Tyson. This was the must-see event of the year at Madison Square Garden. The Mecca, the place of all places. And it built up to this great card. To me personally, one of the best SummerSlams top to bottom in history. And it goes up. And I sent you the match. I will never again in my life experience the entrances and the opening to a match the way that I experienced this one. And I've heard Steve Austin and Taker talk about the match since. And I always felt in my heart that Austin's pop, his entrance, they lowered the volume. I felt like that. And the reason I felt that way is because even though the pop didn't sound as loud as it looked like it was, because it looked like the audience went nuts, but it didn't feel that way because of the audio, I started putting it together. They lowered it because, for whatever reason, the audience volume was a certain way, but then Jim and JR are screaming their audio. They're screaming at the top of their lungs. So I'm like, they must have lowered it. That has to be why they're screaming. I find out later from Steve Austin's podcast that's exactly what happened. Because apparently they had an issue with the audio during Taker's entrance. When they did Taker's entrance, the building was so loud, the microphones that were ringside on the handhelds couldn't pick up the audio streaming from the commentators. And they couldn't catch the audio from Howard Finkel. The building was too loud. It was fucking with the equipment. So they had to lower it down. So by the time it got to Steve, you couldn't really hear it. But from everybody that was in that building, and I knew quite a few people that were in it during that pay-per-view, they have told me it was ear-piercing loud. Like it physically hurt your ears. People were that fucking loud. It was one of the biggest fucking ovations for both of them, to be honest with you. One of the biggest ovations in the history of WWE ever. And the match itself was a good match. It didn't deliver the way they wanted to, because now we have heard the story why, that within the first 5 minutes of the match, Steve Austin got a concussion. There was I don't know if you heard that story before, but there's a spot at the beginning of the match where Steve bends. Steve is throwing hands with Taker, and he gives Taker a boot to the gut, and Taker bends forward. Steve goes to grab him, and Taker, you know how Taker, when he's doing the dead man, he just stands up and does the hair flip so that you can see his face. Steve comes in close to grab him. Taker does the big hair flip, and he headbutts. The back of Taker's head hit Steve right in the fucking jaw, right in the fucking mush, and knocked him completely the fuck out for like several seconds. They had to walk. Taker had to walk him through the next steps of the match because he was completely out of it. He would eventually come to, and they had a match, but he wrestled that whole match essentially drunk. It was just, his equilibrium was everywhere. They still managed to have a really good match, but that hype and that build up, I will never, to this day, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. The Jim Ross audio of him saying, never in the history of the WWF has a champion ever entered the ring to that ovation. He looked at King. He's like, "I defy you, King. Look it up." I literally felt this building shake, and that's the description people who were in the building told me. It felt, when Steve came out, it felt like the building was literally moving left to right. It was that loud inside that building. I can't even begin to imagine what that must have felt like to be in the ring with that much noise. Ever. I mean, to me, it's the number one moment. It's the hottest time period in the history of the company, with the two hottest performers of that era in the hottest city in the world, in the most famous arena it could possibly be in. It was picture perfect for all the elements. So for me, that's the easy number one for me. I'll never be able to experience that ever again in my life. That's the first time I've ever tried black tar cocaine or heroin or whatever. That's the only time I'll ever get that rush ever again in my life. I didn't feel that when I had the birth of my son. I'll never get that fucking feeling back ever again. So that's my explanation for it. But I kind of hyped it up for you before I sent it to you, which usually dampers it for people when I do that. But did you get the idea of what I was talking about with those entrances? Like, did you get a chance to feel any of that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you have a lot of nostalgia behind it, so I feel kind of flat trying to just explain.
Well, no, you're only really explaining like what you experienced again once, because you're being the theme of this so far has been you being refreshed,
right? But it takes a lot. Like, that was the beautiful thing about this time, and I mean, don't get me wrong, we still have it today, but like, some of the stories were just kind of different, and that build-up was so special, and those moments are so special. So, to answer your question, like, yeah, that high-energy, big-time match, you could definitely feel like this was definitely a payout. These guys were going at it the entire time. It was a great match, a lot of physicality. They were beating the shit out of each other, and you can tell as someone who doesn't remember any of the stuff that was kind of going on prior to it, there's definitely some heat behind every punch. There's emotion going on. But like I said, it feels very flat when I say it because you have the memory and the thought, and I think that's what makes it so special. So if to me, if it's an amazing match, I can imagine your explanation of it is just significantly different.